Perhaps part of a problem is we, being parents, have a very limited, narrow definition of what we'd like our kids to be doing. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen the show Why Don't You, that was broadcast in the 80s, and they have these ridiculous scenarios where kids are transfixed by stringing yogurt pots with string together and playing around with squeezy lemons and stuff that I did when I was 5. They expect, 5, 6, 7, 8. They expect 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds to be fascinated by. Just William was like a 9-year-old boy and a bit childish for a 9-year-old boy or something like that. And they think that kids are going to be entranced by, simple little arts and crafts stuff, and it just doesn't work. They want childhood on their idealized terms, and it doesn't work. You can't have freedom without risk, and it's a risk part they have a problem with. As long as you're walking around, and the risk was always there. You know, this idealized world they talk about had risk. It's just a risk that they're comfortable with because they're used to it. Although not everyone's comfortable with it nowadays. People used to build their own go-karts and go sliding down the street. They used to go sledging on roads when it snowed. Kids used to do these kinds of things. I didn't used to do them. It's the kind of thing I wanted to do, some of it. Only I had my own twist to put on everything. We were all supposed to have our own secret dens with secret passages, built in treacherously high trees or in scrap yards full of engineering refuse that we might build into Goonie-style gadgets. We're all supposed to have pulley systems made out of bicycle wheels that would lift our tea trays to levels or unlock our doors or activate some booby trap. And the fact of the matter is our parents wouldn't let us touch a power tool if our lives depended upon it. I had a craft woodwork kit that had this incredibly blunt saw and this very fragile hammer, and with this I was supposed to make little kind of spice racks and things like that. That's the limit of the engineering they wanted us to do, and I had ambitions to do things like, I asked my mother if I could build a laser in our kitchen. Now, at the time I had no idea how expensive that would be, because the laser I wanted to build was a Q-switched ruby pulse laser, and of course the crystal cores on those things are insanely expensive. But that's what I wanted to build. I wanted to build a laser that could actually punch holes through thin steel sheets, because that would be cool. The idea of building something that could punch holes through thin steel sheets filled my mother with a sense of impending doom for some reason. That's a generation we came from. One where we were expected to have these massive adventures, but the means that usually involved risk or expense or the possibility of mischief were denied us. You know, by using a squeezy lemon, the cast of Why Don't You created a bus that would jump through space and time, built giant computers that could do bizarre things. The truth of the matter was, to actually do anything interesting, you need resources, you need freedom, you need independence. To build clubhouses where you can have booby traps, you need proper tool sets, you need materials. You need to not have your parents have a fit when you try to drive a nail that's that thick instead of that thick through several timbers of wood. And I didn't come from that world. You know, my father had a small fit when he saw me climbing on the rocks in Weymouth. Now, that didn't stop us doing it every year. Perhaps that was one of Mum's non-blind spots, you know. She said, oh, they need the exercise and it's good for them, let them climb the rocks. And Dad knew it too in his heart of hearts, but he just had difficulty accepting it. It was like, oh, get away from that edge, get away from that edge. Oh, you sure you should be up at that side, Peter? It's a bit steep, that side. You know, we have lives that are incredibly controlled. All our adventures have to be incredibly controlled. You know, adults go to weekend warrior courses where they'll have a course in driving a tank where there's an experienced tank driver next to them. No one ever just gets off their bum and does something without a safety net anymore, without 15 experts to rubber stamp everything they do, without about 3 months of training and safety certification before they're allowed to actually have a go. I remember being around 18 or so and having 3, 4, 5 kids, no, about 4 kids bundled into my car and told to drive them to this youth event where basically this hairdresser, who was my mother's lodger at the time, had been running a kind of a dance workshop. Why a hairdresser was running a dance workshop, you'll have to ask her. Um, and, 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 and people were perfectly happy with this. I think she was the only person who was ever CRB'd, that is, checked for being paedophiles. Those awful people who were waiting under every bush at the end of every road, which is why children are not allowed to play out anymore. I mean, at least I didn't have to contend with that as a kid. Just the fact that there was no one to play with, if I'm honest. I guess all of the kids on our road was a little young compared to me, or a little old compared to me, or at school when I wasn't. So the notion of playing out, it was like playing out with who? So yep, I was one of the first of the Sega generation, raised by video consoles and TV and the internet and safe, organized events. One of the first who had to make things up. Didn't get to make things up, I guess, as we went along. And I really wish I could offer the kids of this generation some kind of loophole, some kind of opportunity to get into all the trouble I wished I could have got into. Some opportunity to build lasers that can punch through steel in their kitchen, or to have clubhouses and get up to mischief and generally have interesting lives. Because of course that's a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. To be interesting, to be exciting, there has to be an element of uncertainty, and uncertainty is seen as a cardinal sin in our day and age. To choose to do something with uncertainty built in, you must be a maniac to the modern mind. No wonder that we're all going stir crazy in our bizarre, safe, controlled culture. I wish I could do something about that.